Hello, everybody. I am Marcelo Garcia from Brazil. I am from the Fabio Gugel Academy Alliance team. I'm here to show you a number of moves that I used in Abu Dhabi 2003, where I was a champion. I will show you the details of these moves, show you the reason why I was voted the most technical fighter of that tournament. I'm going to start with one of my favorite moves, which is the arm drag. Alright guys, so here we are. I'm going to show you the first detail of this move, which will be to grab the opponent's wrist. To get the wrist, there are two ways to go about it. I can either grab my opponent's wrist first, or I can let him get my wrist first. Let's say the opponent doesn't know this move. He's not very familiar with it. So I need to focus on the wrist I'm going to get. The opponent is moving around. I am going to look for the wrist, which is on the side of my front leg. I grab the wrist just like that. Once I grab that, I don't have the strength to hold on to this guy forever. So I need to make my next move immediately after this. Now, what is that move? I need to get my front leg right to the side of his front leg. Alright, so I have my opponent's wrist. I'm going to step forward right on the same line as his front leg, and I'm also going to put my shoulder into his. So I drive my shoulder into my opponent's shoulder. I also grip his elbow with my hand, my free hand. Now that grip is got to be, you got to cup your hand. You're not just grabbing it in any manner. You're cupping the elbow. The hand cannot be below the elbow or above the elbow. You grab at any of these positions other than the elbow, the opponent will blow out his arm. He'll yank out his arm. All right? So we've got the grip on the elbow. We have the shoulder against the shoulder. And now we've pretty much done a big part of the move. So here we are in the same position again. What do we need to do? We need to grab his wrist first before he does it on me. I always look to get a move before my opponent, before he does it to me. I get his wrist. Once I have the wrist, I need to take my front leg to the same line as his front leg. All right, and at the same time, I drive my shoulder into the opponent's shoulder. The legs right on the same line. And now my hand is cupping his elbow now that we're closer to the opponent. Always making sure that I'm not grabbing below the elbow or above the elbow. Any of these positions and my opponent is going to just yank out his arm. It's very easy to get out of there. So I'm close. I've got the elbow with that grip, cupping the elbow. I have my shoulder against the shoulder and my head resting on the side of his shoulder. Here we are again. Now, what we're going to do is the other option, meaning the opponent is not giving me his wrist easily. You know, we start the position again. He's moving a lot. This guy's good on his feet. He's smart. He's not going to give it up easily. He knows the move. So what do? I cannot grab his wrist, so I need to offer him mine. You know, give him an incentive to come forward. As soon as he grabs my hand, I can't wait there forever, or else the guy's just going to do the move ahead of me. He's going to do it to me. So we can't have that. Once I allow him to grab my wrist at the same time, my other hand is going to be close enough to immediately break his grip. All right, I can't wait too long. You wait too long, you're done. As soon as I have that wrist of his, I need to get my hand out. I yank it out towards his open fingers, just like that. All right? Now, once I have that, then I switch my grip, and now we can start over with the position you've seen already, which is my front leg getting on the side of his front leg with my shoulder driving into his shoulder. Legs on the same line, the hand cupping his elbow. We've got the wrist. I let him grab it. I immediately switch the grip and now start the move. I get close, the legs on the same line, shoulder to shoulder, and my hand is cupping his elbow. Here we are again. My opponent is moving. I can't get that first move, so I give him my wrist. He immediately grabs it. As soon as I get there, I come immediately and switch the grip. Now, my front leg is going to get right on the same line as his front leg, shoulder to shoulder, head right against the shoulder, and I cup his elbow with my free hand. All this has to be done very fast. We can't be slow. I offer him the arm. I switch the grip. I get in there. The hand is right at the elbow. We got the hand on the wrist, shoulder to shoulder. So here we are again. We're actually going to go for another option of this move, the beginning of this move. So now we're moving again. He's not letting me grab his wrist. I offer him my wrist. Just that at this point, when I go to grab his wrist, he immediately traps my other wrist. So there's a different situation now. If I wait too long, if I've not trained this move enough, if I don't have it in my head, my opponent, once I pull out that first hand, if I wait too long, he's going to do the move ahead of me again. And I don't want that. It's very important for you to understand that my jiu-jitsu, the things I teach, I show at the school, it's all about being a step ahead of my opponent. Every move you do, my opponent might be aware of it, but he's going to be doing it after we do it. All right, so I give him my wrist, he grabs it, I grab his, he comes to mine, I switch the grip. Now, I got to switch the grip before he traps my arm there. I get in there, I've got my shoulder against his shoulder, legs are on the same line. Now, he grabs my wrist, I switch it, I come for his wrist. If I wait too long here, he's going to jam my hand, and I'm not going to be able to come in. So it's very important that I need to do it fast. So here we go. He grabs my wrist. I switch. I come inside. Once I get there, we're now at that position you've worked on before. So now I'm worrying about trying to get his wrist. My opponent is not giving it to me. I let him grab it. I switch. Once I get it fast, I have that grip. Right now I'm doing this slowly for you. All right? But at the moment you do it, you need to actually do it fast. The hand can stop my hand from getting in. So now I come in. I've got the wrist. I got the legs on the same line. I have my grip on his elbow and my head against his shoulder. Now I'm going to do it fast for you. So I'm trying to get his wrist. He's not taking it. I switch and I get in. Now here, everything is lined up again and we can move on with the move. So now we're going to show you a defense of this move, a counter that works for you to get out of this move before it goes in completely. Because as soon as it goes in completely, you're in trouble. The guy's going to be on your back already. So the idea is to get to the back, get the hooks in, and finish the opponent. So we're here. Again, he grabs my wrist. Now, once he comes in to do the move like I showed you before, if I stop here, he's going to keep going and the opponent is going to have my back. And that's not the situation we want. So we come back here. He grabs my wrist. As soon as he goes for the move, as soon as we get to this point where we've got the legs on the same line and with a shoulder against shoulder, and he's got that grip on my elbow, it's very important for me to now bring my hand, my far hand, right in between my shoulder and his head. It's going to come right in front of his neck, right in front of his face. So at the same time, my leg is going off the line of his leg. Our legs are not on the same line. All right? If I don't do that, if I don't get my leg off that line, he goes to my back like he just did. So I get my leg off that line, and I drive my hand right in between his shoulder and my head, and I simply back up from the opponent. So he grabs my wrist. We get to this point. My far hand comes right in between my shoulder and his head. Now, he's not on my side anymore. He's got little chance of getting to my back from this position. We simply come back to the beginning. He goes. As soon as he gets here, my far hand is going to come right in front of his face, and I drag my leg out from the same line of his leg so that he's not on my side or he's not on my back either. Now, this hand that comes in front of his face just drives back, and I can pull back from my opponent, and we're now head-to-head again. So one more time here. He goes in. I drive my hand right through. All right, guys. So now we're going to go on to the next part of the move. So this is after you've established the wrist, you've gotten close to the opponent, feet on the same line, and shoulder against shoulder. So let's say I don't give the opponent a chance to do that defense, that counter that I already showed you guys. I'm going to be a step ahead of him, like I said. All the moves I do, I'm always a step ahead of my opponents. Now, so we've got this grip on the guy's elbow. He doesn't want to go to the ground. He wants to start fighting. He's moving around. Once he gives me this chance, he starts moving around like that, I'm going to make him walk. I'm going to make my opponent walk past me, all right, in the direction that he's already facing. How do I do that? I've got his hand. Now I simply pull my opponent past me. Once he gets here, I cannot keep facing the opposite direction. If I do that, my opponent can simply go to my back. So once I make him walk past me, he walks past me, I immediately turn in the same direction as he's going. Now, once I have this, with my opponent bent over, I'm going to bring my chest right on his upper back. All right? I need to do this while he's bent over. Once I do this, it's very important that I have my shoulder also tight against his upper back. The far hand, my hand coming over his back, is going under his armpit, just like that. And my other hand is coming over his shoulder. And now I'm going to make a grip with both my hands that is going to keep him locked to me. The hand that comes under the armpit is always grabbing the wrist of the hand coming over the shoulder. So here we are. I do the first part of the move. I get here. I don't give him time to do that defense, that counter that I showed you previously. Now, the guy decides to trade with me standing. He's not going to the ground. So what do? I'm going to pull him past me. As soon as he walks past me, I can't give him too much space. I can't keep facing the other direction. I'm going to face my opponent, or else he's going to go to my back. So I turn immediately and face my opponent's side. Now I need to get my chest on his upper back. I get up there. My hand is reaching over his back, going under the armpit, and this hand that is closer here is going over the shoulder. My far hand grabs the wrist of the hand over his shoulder. I now lock into his chest. I drive that grip into his chest, or else if I don't keep everything tight, if I don't keep my chest against his upper back and my grip tight against his chest, my opponent is going to be able to step out of the position, and then we'll have to start everything again. So here we are again in this position. I'm going to get to that part of the first position. Once I get here, again, the feet are lined up. I've got the good grip on his elbow, his wrist, shoulder to shoulder. Once again, I cannot allow my opponent to do that defense, that counter that I showed you previously. So I need to be a step ahead of my opponent, like I said. What am I going to do to continue the next part of the move? I need to drive my opponent forward. I need to make him walk in the direction he's facing. I step back, and now with those grips I have on his hand, I'm going to yank him forward, make him walk past me. Once I get here, if I wait too long, he can go to my back. I don't want that. All right? So I'm going to make my opponent walk past me, just like that, and I quickly face the direction he's going in. Once I get there, I need to take the time while his back is bent to get my chest on his upper back, just like that. Now, once I get to this position, I need my hand going under his armpit and the opposite hand going over his shoulder. Now, as you see there, the hand going under the armpit grabs the wrist of the other hand. I now drive that grip I have into his chest with my chest driving into his upper back. I have him really tight between my chest and the grip. So I get to this first part of the position. Now, once again, before he does the counter, the defense, he's moving around. I need to walk my opponent forward. We're going to make him walk in the direction he's already facing. So how do I do that? I'm going to step my leg back, and now I'm going to drive him forward. As I do that, I immediately go in the same direction as my opponent. Now, never letting him go to my back, because that would be a very bad situation, obviously. So I make him walk, and I immediately go in the same direction as he's in. And I keep my chest. As he's waiting there, I'm going to get up and drive my chest on his upper back. All right, if I wait too long, he'll get up, he'll get out of the position. It's going to be hard for me to reach and get up on his upper back. So I need my opponent bent over when I do this move. I get here, the hand is going under the armpit, and the other hand, which is on the side of that leg, is coming over the shoulder. I now grab the wrist of that hand and keep my chest and my shoulder tight against his upper back. If this is loose, if my grip is loose, if my chest is not on my opponent's upper back, he's going to get out of that position. We don't want that. All right, so we're going to continue with the position. I get to the initial part of the move. Once I get here, I make my opponent walk. Now, once I make him walk, I've got my chest on his upper back. I've got the grips into his chest. Now, this is the point where a lot of people have problems. This is in terms of getting the hooks. A lot of people make this part of jiu-jitsu very difficult for themselves. Why? Because they're always trying to do the harder thing. They're not going the easy route. They're not seeing things as they can be. You know, right here, I've got my leg, the leg that is closer to his leg right there that I'm showing. I need to get that hook in there as opposed to trying to reach over with the other leg instead of jumping on his back. Now, to do that, I'm going to wait for my opponent. He's not comfortable as he is. I'm going to wait for him to start lifting up. As soon as he starts lifting up, I put that first hook there. He starts to stand up, we get the first hook in. He keeps going, we hop on his back, and we've got the two hooks. Now, once I get the other hook, now we've got the 4 points, and we've got an established position. So here we go again. I get the move on him. First part of the move, I make my opponent walk. I turn in the same direction. I've got my chest on his upper back. I've got the lock right against his chest. I've got my opponent tight. Now I'm going to do what's easier for me. I'm not going to try and jump on his back because I need that far hook to go in. We're going to go in for the hook that is closer, the easier thing. The jiu-jitsu is simple. It can't be complicated. So right now, he starts to stand up. I put that first hook in. He keeps going up. I'm going to put the second hook. My opponent is very uncomfortable, bent over there, so he's always going to stand up. Once I get here, my hooks need to be above the knees, not below the knees. They're below the knees, you start losing it. Above the knees. All right, guys, so we're going to keep going with the move. I got the opponent's wrist. I get to that initial position. I've got his elbow. I make my opponent walk. I turn and face him. I get my chest on his upper back. Once I get there, I've got the lock, okay? I'm grabbing my wrist with the other hand. Now, once I try and put my first hook in, the hook I told you was so important, my opponent is not allowing me to do that. He's defending it. Now, once he's defending that, it's going to be useless for me to try and come in with that far hook. So while he's worried about these hooks, it means there's something open for me. If he's worrying about my hook so much, his neck is going to be wide open. So I'm going to get my hand right into his throat and go for the mata-leão. Now, before I get the mata-leão, you need to realize that I jam my hand into his throat, all right? I don't walk it into the throat like we normally do. We're going to jam it into the throat. Once we get to that point, I'm going to get my fingers into the groove of his shoulder right there, of his armpit actually. Now, my other hand is going to be able to come out in the meanwhile and lock up for the mata-leão, and we get the submission. So here we go again. I get right there. I've got my opponent's elbow. I make him walk. I put my chest on his upper back. Now once I get here, I've got my locks in. My hand is going under the armpit, the other hand over the shoulder. Now my opponent starts worrying about this first hook I want to get in. Once he's worrying about that, it's useless for me to try and get the far hook. It's just very difficult to get the far hook if the first one is not coming in. So it's useless. Now, when my opponent is worrying about my hooks, it means his neck has no defense. His neck is open, his neck is free because his hands are worrying about my hooks. And therefore, the mataleon can easily go in. Now, for me to do the mataleon, the hand that is over the shoulder is going to let go and he's going to jam against into his throat. It's not going to walk into the throat. You're not going to slip that hand in. You're going to jam it into his throat. Once we get there, I'm going to put my fingers right into the groove between his back and his shoulder. Now, once we get there, that's going to give me the opportunity for my hand to get out. This hand that's under the armpit is going to come out, and I'm going to lock up my hands for the mataleon. Now, once I get here, I simply get the submission. So here we are again. Now, we're going to move on to another facet of the position. I make my opponent walk. I've got my chest on his upper back. I've got my hands locked together. Now, when I go in to put the hooks, it's not about just putting in the hooks. It's about putting in the hooks and looking for the submission. Always going for the submission. So now I look for my first hook. Once I get that, he starts lifting up. My hand jams into his throat. Now, as my hand jams into his throat, the free hand has the opportunity to come out from under the armpit. I've also got to make sure the fingers of the hand that is at his throat are digging into the groove of his armpit, and then I bring the other hand out for the mataleon. So here we are again. I get that part of the move. I get my chest on his upper back. My hands are locked at his chest. As soon as he starts lifting up, I'm going to put in my hooks, and I try and get the mataleon. Now, once I start going for my hand into his throat, he's going to grab the hand, and he's also going to put his chin against his chest. Now, what I'm going to do right after that is jam the hand the same way I've been doing it. Just keep going with the hand. Don't stop. Now, as the hand is grabbing onto his arm, I now get the other hand from under the armpit to pull his forehead up. I now lock up the mataleon and get the submission. So here we are again. I'm going to make my opponent walk. I face him, get my chest on his upper back, glue to his upper back. Now, I've got the hands locked together again. Now, he's going to start lifting up, and I'm going to put the hooks in. Now, once I get the hooks in, I'm also looking for the submission. All right? I'm always aware that his neck can be free at any time. So he starts lifting up, I get him with those hooks, and my hand at the same time jams into his throat. All right? As it jams into his throat, the other hand can come out from under the armpit and choke him out. Here we go again. I make my opponent walk. I got my chest on his upper back. I've got my hands locked together. Now, once he starts lifting up, I'm going to put the hooks, and my hand is going to try and go into his throat. He's defending it again. I keep jamming my hand forward right into his throat. It doesn't matter. The chin is right there. Now, I need to make sure that my hand doesn't slip from his shoulder there. So that hand is going to have the time to come out from under his armpit and pull his forehead up. And once we get there, we can finish the mataleon. So here we are again. Now we're going to keep going on with this move. But as opposed to taking my opponent's back, now I'm going to use the arm drag and take him down to the ground. This is a move I used in Abu Dhabi, actually. All right, guys, here we go again. So we're going to keep going on with this move. But instead of jumping on the guy's back and getting the choke standing, I'm going to take my opponent to the ground. I actually use this move in Abu Dhabi. All right, guys, so let's start showing you the details of this move and stopping along the way so that you can understand the nuances and the subtleties of the particular move. All right, so I get to this point where I've got my hand on the elbow. Now, once I get my hand on the elbow, before I do the first move that you guys learned, he's going to be trying to pull away and rip his arm out of there. Okay, just like that. So I've got his elbow. Before he gets his arm out, now when I realize he doesn't want to stand with me, he doesn't want to go with me on his feet, I'm going to sit down and pull my opponent down. How do I do that? I'm going to put my weight on top of his shoulder, that hand that I've got there, and I'm going to put his weight down, and his body is going to go down because of that. Now, I'm going to step my leg in the middle of his legs. I'm going to step my leg in between his legs. And now, once I do that, I pull him down with me. Now, when we get down here, his arm is still trapped, all right? That arm stays with me. It's got to be tight. So here we are again. I got the wrist. I step in. I've got my opponent's elbow. Now, the guy doesn't want to trade standing up. He doesn't want this game standing. So he's trying to pull out his arm. If I wait too long, that arm of his is going to get out. Now, we don't want that to happen. So as soon as we get to this position, I've got the foot right there. I've got the hand on his elbow. Now, I'm going to sit down. I'm going to sit down, making sure that his hand comes down with me. His weight is going to come down to the ground with me. I put that leg in between his legs, and we go to the ground. Sorry, here we are again. We're going to go over this move, and we're going to pay attention once more to details and the subtleties of the move. I've got my opponent's wrist. I step on the same line as he is in. I've got the elbow. Now, when I get here, instead of me trying to make the guy walk, my opponent is resisting. He's trying to pull his arm out. All right? As I'm trying to make him walk, he's pulling out his hand. And I lose the arm, I lose the position, and we have to start all over. So we're right here again. I got my opponent's wrist. I got the elbow. When I realize that I can't make my opponent walk, that he's going to give me a fight standing here, I need to think of another move to do before he pulls out his arm out. If we let him pull out his arm, we're going to have to start over again. So now I've got my shoulder on that shoulder of his, the shoulder of the arm that I have. I put my weight down on it, and I'm going to take him to the ground with it. Now, I'm going to sit down, putting my leg in between his legs. The leg beside his front leg stays there. The other leg goes right between his legs. And now I keep the arm tight. So here we go again. I've got the opponent's wrist. I step in. I've got the elbow. Now, if I wait too long here, my opponent is going to go. He's going to pull that arm out. So I'm not able to make him walk here. I can't give him too much time. If he pulls that arm out, you're going to have to start everything over. We never want to do that. We never want to go backwards. So before he pulls this arm out, I realize my opponent doesn't want to walk. What am I going to do? Am I going to let him go? No. I'm going to hang on to him, put my weight down on him. Now, I'm going to keep my front leg right on the same line as that leg of his. And now the other leg is going to go in between his legs, and we're going to go down to the ground. I get down there. I've got to make sure that I keep that hand tight. I can't let his hand go, or he can try and pass. So let's keep going on with the move. I've got my opponent's wrist. I step in. I've got his elbow. Now I take him to the ground. At this point, I've got his arm tight. I can't wait too long, or my opponent is going to base out. He could try and get his arm out, and he's going to establish a position on me. As soon as I fall down here, as soon as we get to the ground, this arm that's got him is going to help me to lift up. I've got to bring my chest up to his shoulder there. Now, I need to do that so that I can put my chest on his back once again, on his upper back. So I let the arm go, and I use that hand to go in the opposite armpit, the far armpit. The hand goes over the shoulder, and I lock my hands together like we did when we were standing. Now, once we get here, I keep that grip tight against his chest once again. So here we are. When I have this hand, I've got to make sure that when I come up, I use that leg as a pendulum to get me up, get some momentum going with that leg. And at the same time, I'm now going to let the hand go and not give him a chance to come out at the same time. You see how I roll up there? I can't give too much of a space for him to pull out. I get to this point, I lock my hands together and put the chest down. So we start again. I've got my opponent's wrist. I step in. All right. He's not letting me make him walk. So what am I going to do? I take the game to the ground. I've got him here. Once I get here, I'm going to use that leg to help me to get up. I'm going to swing that leg, and it's going to give me momentum to come up, and I'm going to face him again. Now I can bring out that hand and use it to post up, as you see on the side there. Now, there are a few variations that could go on here, a few options, all right? But I'm going to take advantage of what my opponent gives me. What's happening right now is that he's not moving. Therefore, I can simply continue with my motion and get to my opponent's back. And the other hand goes under the armpit, as you see there. And my other hand is going to come over the shoulder and secure that grip against his chest. Now, it's very important that when I fall down there, that for me to get up, I need to get a lot of momentum going with that leg. It's like a pendulum. It helps me to get up. It's going to get me halfway. Once I get there, the rest is done with the help of this hand, which I put down to support my weight, and I can hop on his back with my chest on the upper back, the hand going under the armpit, and securing the lock with the hands. All right, here we are again, guys. We're going to keep going with this position, and we're going to go until we get the submission. I've got the opponent's wrist. I take him down to the ground. Once I get here, I use my leg to help me get up. I get my chest on his upper back. My hands are locked at his chest. Right now, I also have that first hook, as you see under there. And now I come in with a second hook, and at the same time, jam my hand into his throat, grab his shoulder, and that's going to give my other hand the opportunity to come out from under the armpit, and I'm going to lock the Mataleon for the submission choke. Here we go again. I got his wrist. I take him down. I get here. I'm going to come up using that leg to get some momentum going, let my hands go, and put the far hand under the armpit. I've got the first hook in there, as you see. And now all I need to worry about is getting the second hook. Now, as I'm going to get the second hook, I'm going to jam my hand into his throat at the same time. All right? I'm not going to do it before. As the leg is going over, that free leg, going for the hook, the other hand jams into his throat. I grab his shoulder, gives my other hand the chance to get out, and I lock the Mataleon. All right, guys, we're going to keep going with this position, but we're just going to start from the ground here. So I've got my opponent's arm. I've got my leg right in between his legs for the first hook. Now, I've pulled him down. I've got the arm tight. Just that now, before I start coming up, my opponent, he's smarter. He's going to keep a step ahead of me. He knows that I could go to his back. So how does he realize that? I've got his arm there. He knows that a guy like me is going to jump to the back. So he doesn't want that. What's he going to do? Instead of letting me pull him down and get into his back, he's going to start lifting up. He's going to lift me up, and I'm going to go with him. I'm going to use his strength against him. Now, once I get here, I'm going to keep going and simply get to his back again. Now, I make sure I bring that hand under the armpit, and the other hand is coming over the shoulder. I lock my hands together at the chest. Now, we've got to do this pretty fast. Why? Because if I take too long here, my opponent can pull away. So I need to go with him. I've got to use the strength that he wants to use against me. I've got to use it against him. So this is a very important position, actually, because I use this in Abu Dhabi. I use it especially against the bigger opponents I had to face in Abu Dhabi, guys that were dependent on their strength a lot. So he pulls me, and I simply go with him. I get here, I lock my hands together, I got the chest on his upper back. And now I can put the second hook in, and we can look for the finish. So here we are again. I've got that arm there, as you see. You can see my leg which is in between his legs. He's got that first hook. He starts pulling back. Now he starts going. If I wait too long here, we're way too separated. There's nothing I can do there. I need to keep him tight. As soon as he starts pulling up, I'm going to use the momentum to go up. And without him knowing, he's taken me to his own back. And now I get that chest on his upper back. That hand is over the shoulder. That hand is under the armpit. I put the second hook in. We can look for the finish. All right, guys, we're going to keep going with the same move until we get the submission. So we're down here. I've got my opponent's arm. Now, he realizes his hand is tied up. He's so strong, though. My opponent is so strong that he's going to start trying to pull me up with him. He's a strong guy, so he's able to get me up there. Now, once he does this, I've got to use that leverage, that momentum against him. I've got to always use what my opponent gives. He does that, I take my hips off the ground just like that. And once my hips off the ground, I'm already on my opponent's back. I get my opponent's back. I've got to let his hands go and immediately take that hand over the shoulder. The other one goes under the armpit, and I lock my hands together, get that second hook in there, and now we can go for the conventional finish here where we jam the hand into the throat. All right, I grab onto his shoulder there, let the other hand come out, and I lock up the Mata-Leon. Here we are again. I've got my opponent's arm. He starts lifting up. He's using his strength. I'm going to use his momentum against him. I'm going to use that leg too. I get up. My hips are completely off the ground. It's very important you note that. I drive my chest down on his upper back. This hand is already over the shoulder. The far hand is going under the armpit. I swing the second hook inside, go in there for the Mata-Leon, jam my hand in, get the submission. All right, guys, here we go again. We're going to keep going with this move with a third variation. All right, and we're going to get the submission. So I've got my opponent here. I've got his arm. I've got my leg in between his legs. I lift up there, get my hips up. I put my chest on his upper back. Now, before I lock my hands together, the guy's already realizing that I could go to his back. All right? So I've got one hand under his armpit. I've got the other hand over his shoulder. Now, as soon as I lock my hands together, my opponent does the only thing he can do here, which is try and put his back to the ground. I've got that first hook in there, as you see. I lock my hands together. My opponent immediately puts his back to the floor. He wants to keep rolling, but I immediately post out my leg, as you see there. You see that leg out there? I'm posting out on it, so he can't move anymore. He can't spin. So now, I've got to keep a step ahead of him. What am I going to do? I'm going to bend that leg that is posted up, and I'm going to drive it right into his back. I drive it into his back. I make him come around just like that. I'm now going to put in my second hook. I put in the second hook. Now the hands that are locked on his upper body are going to loosen up. The hand is going to drive into his throat. It's going to jam into his throat. I lock my hands together and get the rear naked. So here we are again. I've got the arm. I swing my leg there, get my hips up, all right? I let go of his arms. I put my chest on his upper back. All right, once I get here, I lock my hands together at his chest like we've done before. Once I get here, realizes that the second hook is coming on. So what's my opponent going to do? He's going to do the only thing that is open to him here, which is roll into his back. He's going to try and put his back flat to the ground so I can't get his back. I immediately stop that movement. I counter it by posting my leg up there. The leg sticks out right on the toes. I bend the leg, put it right into his back, and now I come around, put that second hook in. Once I get the second hook in, I can now loosen up my hands, jam my hand into his throat, grab onto the shoulder, let the other hand come out. It's going to give me the time for the other hand to come out, and I lock the rear naked on him. All right, guys. Here we're going to go again with the same move with more details. I've got my opponent down here. I lift up, get up, let his hands go. Get the far hand under the armpit. Get the other hand over the shoulder. Now I've got the chest on the upper back. Now, once we get here, I worry about his roll. Again, I counter the roll by posting up. You see, I post my toes up there. You see the toes against the mat. Now, this is going to stop him from going on, from moving on. So I've got my hands locked, and as soon as he rolls to the ground, he puts his back to the floor. If I don't put my leg down, he's going to keep going, and he's going to spin out just like that, and he could even end up on top. So I've got my opponent's arm there. I got the hook inside. I get up. Once I get up here, my hand comes under his armpit. As soon as I've got the chest on the upper back, the opponent starts spinning. Once he does that, I post up. I stop his movement once again with my leg. So we've got that leg in between his legs. The other leg that is posting up, that is helping me stop his movement, I'm going to push that knee right into the small of his back. And now I spin him around. I put that second hook. Now, right here, I can sit up here. I can sit up. Sitting up, I got more control over my opponent. Now, once I get to this position, I've got the back completely off the floor. I get here, and now his neck is much more under control. He starts defending by grabbing onto my arm. I don't worry about that. I just jam my hand into his throat like I just did. I grab onto his shoulder. I let the other hand come out, all right? And I'm going to lock up the rear naked choke. So where you are again, I got the arm, I come up, I get my chest on the upper back. Once he starts spinning now, this leg, that free leg of mine, is going to post up on the other side to stop his turn, to stop the spinning. Now, if that leg doesn't support it, if it doesn't stop the movement, he's going to come up on top of me. We do not want that. We need to post up that leg. So here I am again. I've got his arm. I come up. I get my chest on his upper back. And now I've locked my hands together. Now, that leg of mine is going to come around. Knowing he's about to spin, it's going to come around and it's going to post up. It's going to stop his movement abruptly. Once I get there, I'm going to bend that knee and put it right to his back. And the leg is going to come out from right under his body, and the second hook is going to come in. Now, once I have the hooks, I'm going to try and finish when I sit up, when I get more comfortable. All right? Things become easier when I sit up here. I'm cradling my opponent. Now, for me to get up and sit down, I need to worry about not letting my hands come loose. I've got to make sure the grip against his chest is tight. I can't let his back be loose from my chest. My chest is always going to be sticking to his back. So now he's trying to grab onto my hand. It doesn't matter. I jam my hand into his throat anyways. I hold onto the shoulder. At the same time, it gives my other hand a chance to come out, and I lock it up, get the submission.
De luta agarrada, vamos dizer assim, predomina o jiu-jitsu.
Com certeza. A competição mais charmosa, de mais alto nível e melhor premiação.
E olha só. Ih, rapaz, já encaixou ali, hein? O Marcelo já encaixou.
Já entrou com tudo, hein?
Olha, o Marcelo encaixou. Pra cima do Shaolin. Bateu, bateu, terminou.
Acabou.
Dormiu.
Uma surpresa, hein? Dormiu.
Tá desmaiado o Shaolin.
Recorde disparado.
Impressionante. 24 segundos.
Uma surpresa. Nossa Senhora.
24 segundos. Ok, já vai tudo ok aí com o Shaolin.
Já recuperou. Foi tomada de surpresa, hein?
Tempo, Fernando. 24 segundos, Dudu. The Flash. Olha, você viu ali quando nós dissemos pela parte da manhã, entrou o Mata-Leão. E aí...
World Martial Arts is the undisputed leader in mixed martial arts instructional videos. Learn from the world's most highly respected instructors such as Mario Sperry, Murillo Bustamante, Kevin Jackson, Duke Rufus, Tony Cicchini, Igor Yakimov, and many more. Visit the official World Martial Arts website at groundfighter.com to view our complete video and DVD library.